officer in psychiatric mental health nursing, especially I'm doing my research on adolescents, and my main area is in bullying. Um, so the idea of my research came from the literature in which prior research has focused on the role of how the relationship between teachers and students affect the students' bullying in terms of students' engagement in bullying and their attitudes towards bullying. There was only one study that found the relationship between students and teachers, the quality of this relationship affects how students or students' attitudes towards bullying. However, I didn't find anything about whether the relationship or the quality of relationship between teachers and students affect teachers' attitudes with respect to bullying. Um, our study was guided by Vygotsky, 1978, social constructivism theory, in which Vygotsky said that our knowledge or how we perceive the world, it depends on the quality of the relationship we have with others. That is in which our knowledge is constructed, deconstructed, and we reconstruct our thoughts through human activity. And one of those activities is our relationship with others, in which the quality of relationship we engage with others affect our perception about the world, about others, and about ourselves. So the aim of the study was to investigate whether a positive teacher-student relationship as perceived by teachers is linked to teachers' attitudes toward school bullying. And attitudes here was measured by three things. How serious they view bullying, whether they show empathy toward the victim, and their willingness to intervene in bullying situation. So in regards to our methods, our study was a cross-sectional, descriptive and correlational study. Our sample was a convenience sample of 173 teachers. Those teachers were teaching in secondary public schools of three governorates in the Northern District of Jordan, and they were teaching adolescents in the age of 12 to 17-year-old students. We asked teachers to complete a self-reported questionnaire to assess their attitudes toward school bullying and to assess the quality of relationship they have with the students in terms of relationship closeness and conflict. So we used our instruments. First, we collected socio-demographic data, including age, gender, level of education, total years of experience as a teacher, and years of experience in the current school. We used the bullying attitude questionnaire modified by Yoon and Kerber. And this questionnaire, it is based on vignettes, and there were 6 vignettes. Each 2 vignettes assess one type of bullying. And the instrument measures 3 types of bullying: physical, verbal, and relational bullying. And each type of bullying was assessed in terms of how the teacher view it, whether it is serious or not, whether they empathized with the victim in the vignette, and whether they are willing to intervene in the bullying situation. And we also used Pianta 2001, a questionnaire to assess the quality of relationship between the teachers and students as perceived by teachers in terms of relationship closeness or conflict. So our results reveal that the total number of teachers, we had 173 teachers. Almost half of them were females. The participants' mean age were 38.5 with a standard deviation of 7.8. Most teachers had a bachelor degree, 76.5%. They had an average teaching experience of 12.6 years, and in total, and 6.2 years of teaching experience in the current school. Our analysis, other than descriptive data to describe the sample, we used hierarchical regression. We ran the hierarchical regression in 3 separate steps. Each hierarchical regression, the outcome variable, one time was the seriousness of bullying. The other hierarchical regression was whether the outcome was the empathy towards the victim. And the third one, hierarchical regression, was teachers' willingness to intervene in bullying situation. This is the descriptive statistics of teachers' attitudes of bullying. If we look at the mean and the standard deviation of the three types of bullying, the verbal, physical, and relational, we can see that the mean for the verbal and physical was higher than the relational bullying, in terms of that the teachers view these two forms of bullying, verbal and physical, more serious, and they empathized more with the victims than when it comes to relational bullying. In terms of the predictors of teachers' perceived seriousness of bullying, the p-value was only significant for two variables. One was gender, okay, and here when we did the dummy coding, female gender perceived bullying more serious than male teachers, and also the closeness subscale. The higher the teacher had a close relationship with the students, the more serious they viewed the bullying act. In terms of the predictors of teachers' empathy toward bullying, again, the same variables were significant: the gender of the teacher and the closeness subscale. And again, female were empathized more with the victims than male teachers. And also, the closer the relationship was between the teachers and the students, the higher they empathized with the victims. Unfortunately, when it comes to the predictors of likelihood to intervene in bullying situations by teachers, none of the variables were significant predictors for that. So our predictors were gender, age, education, total years of experience, experience at current school, closeness subscales, and conflict subscale. So the discussion, our first significant finding was gender as a predictor of teachers' attitudes towards school bullying. We found that female teachers, they viewed bullying more serious and empathized more with the victims. And this is in line with prior research in which females show higher seriousness of bullying and empathize more with the victims. And this is related to the way females are socialized in the society, that they need to show tender and caring, but not as much for males. The second significant finding in that the quality of the relationship between the teacher and the student, as perceived by teacher, predicted teachers' anti-bullying attitudes in terms of seriousness of the bullying and in terms of empathy. And this is also similar to those reported in the literature. However, the teachers were unable to intervene for the victims. And this is where research is needed. Why teachers were, although they viewed bullying as serious act, they showed higher empathy, but they were not able to provide any intervention. For this is a new avenue for new research. And when we search in the literature, it said sometimes there are variables that hinder teachers from intervening, such as whether they have self-efficacy to intervene, how confident they feel they can intervene in bullying situation. And the second thing was related to the gender of the teacher or the gender of the student, or to the experience of the teacher, whether in teaching or also in intervening in general. The limitations of our study, we used a self-reported questionnaire. We only assessed also the quality of the teacher-student relationship from teacher's perspective only. We didn't take the student's perspective, so maybe their perspectives are different. Also, to assess the teacher's attitudes of bullying, we used vignettes, which may also elicit a disparity between what people would really do in a real situation compared to a hypothetical scenario. Also, teachers were only recruited from public schools in the northern district of Jordan, which may hold geographically related norms and perceptions about bullying. So, and I like to mention that this is the first research to assess these two variables, whether the quality of the relationship between teachers and the students really affect teachers' attitudes towards bullying. So more research is needed in this area, replication research. Also, more research is needed to see whether the relationship between those variables hold in other geographically area, and also to do maybe a qualitative research in terms of this phenomenon. Implications: we saw that teachers perceive physical and verbal bullying more seriously and empathized more than relational bullying. Although relational bullying also has psychological consequences on the victims, some research says the psychological consequences are harsher on students than the physical and verbal. So we need to increase the efforts and increase teachers' cognizance about relational bullying and its seriousness on the students. Also, interventions are needed to help teachers to be more responsive to the cognitive and emotional needs of students, especially for male teachers, since they were lower in their perception of bullying seriousness and to empathize with the victims. So the conclusion is that this research provide an avenue for, like, we can look at or improve the quality of the relationship between teachers and the students as an avenue to improve teachers' attitudes towards bullying, to see it more serious and to empathize more with the victims, and also to look what factors may let teachers intervene or not intervene in bullying situations, as viewing bullying only as a serious act and to empathize with the victims is not enough to prevent bullying acts. Thank you. Any question?